Before the break, I asked people to think about what it meant to be to the environment. And that in of itself becomes sort of a questionable. And one of the examples that really stick out in my mind is the peacock. Think about the peacock. Can you really say, let's say if you lived in a dark, dense jungle in India where tigers, and there used to be lions back before humans killed them all, and other carnivores that would be able to eat something small, a little bit larger than a chicken, but smaller than a turkey. So we're not talking about emu-size animal. We're talking about, a peacock. You guys seen peacocks before, right? Think about, you got this dense foliage everywhere. You've got all these nooks and crannies for these things to be, for everything to be hiding, the tigers and whatever to be hiding. And think about a male peacock. It's got this huge train of feathers, right? And in order to fuck, it has to do some crazy shit. That peahen mind has forced over time the peacock to move out of, think about what would be a fit animal. If you're a bird and you live in the jungle, how would you be fit to live in the jungle, right? You'd probably, if you've got some ideas, throw your comments down. I would assume you would be camouflaged, right? If you're in the jungle, you probably want to look like the jungle so you don't get eaten, right? You probably want to be quiet, right? And you probably want to be as inconspicuous as possible, I would imagine, right? And if you look at the peahen, that she fits that description pretty much. So brownish color, fits in with the leaf matter at the floor of the forest, doesn't make a lot of noise, is able to hide pretty easily. But look at the peacock, look at the male, right? Isn't camouflaged at all, is noisy as fuck, and he has to he has to leave the jungle, right, where he could be hiding and eating worms and chilling and doing his own peacock thing. No, he has to, if he wants to do it, right, what's he have to do? He has to go find a clearing, right? So get out of hiding. He has to open this gigantic fan that he could barely walk with. And he has to make a whole bunch of noise. And maybe he gets the fuck. You know what I'm saying? How's that fit? That's not fit. Now, and I think the moral of the story goes that was wrong to begin with. That was a misinterpretation of what Darwin was really getting at. What's happening, what really happens is it's your DNA surviving. And how does it survive? Richard Dawkins wrote a whole book called The Selfish Gene. And it's an interesting perspective. I didn't read the whole book, but one of the I guess main ideas you could think of from it is that you've heard of your body as a vessel and all this stuff, and it sounds real spiritual and stuff, but really you are the result of a set of instructions, and your set of instructions is the general set of instructions for human, right? Your dog has the general set of instructions for dog. Otherwise, your dog would be not a dog, but would be something else. So whatever else you have, that had that set of instructions. Now, of course, there are little tiny detailed instructions that make it your dog, your cat, you and not me and not someone else, right? But at the end of the day, it's a set of instructions. And when we say a species survives or something like that, it's really that batch of instructions that equates to this set of stuff really, if you think about it, you could say, well, the being, the animal, the person, whatever it is with DNA, which on a whole other episode that we should talk about, the fact that all living things have this trait in common, that we are all connected through this trait of the instruction set of DNA. That's important, because think about life itself, what you are. If we think about all the way down, right? Let's think back to science class. What even are you? You're a bunch of atoms, right, that are linked together to make molecules, and those molecules link together to make, cell components, not even cells yet, right? And these are atoms and molecules and things arranged in certain ways that interact with each other in certain ways that really work off chemical processes, right? And we keep extrapolating that from cell componentry, right? I'm not even talking about organelles yet. I'm talking about like membrane pieces and stuff, right? And then the componentry of the organelles, and then the cell itself, and then the cell collection to the organ, and then the whole being. Think about all of those things. At what point is what in that is life? What part is alive? Where does the life part go from when we're talking about are atoms alive? Because we know, like, this glass is made of atoms. We don't say the atoms are alive. The atoms that we're made out of, are they alive or not alive, right? And most of us would say they're not alive, right? But the atoms that join together to make molecules, are the molecules alive? And most of us would say, no, those molecules aren't necessarily alive. They're just molecules that exist in your body or what, that are part of it, right? Okay, so when those molecules interact together and to form chemical reactions, is that where life is? Is life simply a set of chemical reactions and electrical signals, right? So even your thoughts, right? You take the wrong meds and you are not you. So what is you? I mean, this kind of, anyway, let's go back to fucking, right? I mean, let's just face it, right? So going back to survival of the fittest, again, it's a misnomer. Why the fuck would we have peacocks if it's survival of the fittest? That's not fit. It's not fit. Think about it. It's not fit. And there's other examples of that around where the male, in order to compete for the eye of the female, and whatever's directing that, mind you, why? What is it about the peahen that makes it want the male peacock to do this big ass shit? Is it to show, I mean, in so many ways? I mean, I don't know that the peahen is thinking literally. I mean, without anthropomorphizing this, right? What does that mean? Without putting your own human brain into the brain of a bird, right? Why would that be the pressure that the males are under, right? And you didn't even expect this bomb. How does that relate to current society? Think about that.
Oh, did he just drop a mic?
Well, I'll just whet your appetite. I mean, I got some ideas that are crazy, and it'll piss a lot of people off. I'll tell you what, Jordan Peterson is going to cry.
Get him.
When I drop some of these truths.
Oh, the truth bomb.
Because let's face what's going on here. Humans, I believe humans are by nature, cooperative beings that work together. Okay. We as we all know that the human form as it stands now, and even millennia past, okay, the Homo sapien by itself is pretty lame, right? We don't run very fast compared to other animals, right? We don't see real well compared to other animals, and we don't hear real well. We don't smell real well. Actually, we don't do anything at all very well. We sort of suck at living in this earth by ourselves, right? Like you can't take on a lion, okay, by yourself. That's why all these libertarians out there, like rugged individuals. Well, without technology, alone, with nothing, can you fight the lion? But with your buddies, I think you could fight the lion. You know what I mean? And that simply is the story of humanity. We are pack beings. We work with each other. And one of the biggest breakthroughs, I think, that really helped push me over the edge to this thought process as a default for humans. Now, I'm not saying there aren't the people that will get over on you and that aren't community based, that would fuck you over in order to benefit themselves. There's plenty of that, right? And that's why I posed that initial question way back. What is an outstanding person to you? Who is a model citizen to you? What is model society to you? Because I think we have two conflicting philosophies in society, and we really need to choose. I don't think they really live together very well. This social Darwinist idea that if you can't survive, you die. That's just nature's way. You're poor for a reason. It's just because you just aren't of the mindset, or you just don't have the gumption, or you just don't have the will, or blah, blah, blah. The market just is spoken, and you're just not worth it. And sorry, you just suck. And so die, right? And then there's the other side where we have I believe for most of us, now there are some psychopaths out there, which not just clinical, just people that are on the scale, because it is a spectrum nowadays anyway. I mean, there was a time when it wasn't, I guess. I don't know. I'm not a psychiatrist or whatever, psychologist. Weigh in if you're trained. Going back to the fittest. So that idea about the fittest is already wrong. And it's really about who gets to hump the most and whose babies make it. And of those babies, who humps the most. So in the peacock sense, the ones that impress the most females by doing these outlandish things that the females want, they get to hump the most, right? Pardon me. Which is different, though, than, let's say, the lion. Look at the lion. Let's think about this. So we talked about peacocks not being fittest, and there's this sort of motivation for the how do they get to continue the lineage? How does that selfish DNA instruction set, how does it push its vessel along to keep the species alive, and to hopefully, I guess, dominate to the best that it can, or proliferate? I don't know. I mean, what is it? Is that instruction, that notion to continue proliferating, is that also written into the DNA itself? I don't know. But let's look at, and this is where I'm gonna loop this back to a societal phenomenon that we can see right now. Here in a second. Okay, so talk about the peacocks. If we look at other animal groups, so I mentioned lions, right? If we look at how do they get to continue, right? How do they get to procreate? We know that the male lions fight each other, and then they take control of the whole harem, or the whole pride, basically. And it's a winner take all situation, right? And I would contend, I mean, there's a lot of situations like that. We see a lot of mammals that do that, right? So not only carnivores, of course, we see bighorn sheep, all manner of antlered animals, a lot of physical dominance equals procreation. Whereas in insects, in birds, I'm trying to think if there are I'm trying to think what mammals might, because mammals aren't really big display animals, really. I mean, mammals aren't really. Can you think of anything, producer TJ? A flashy mammal. If you think about it, put it in the comments. A flash is some mammal that does not fight for dominance, that does a display only to attract the female. I don't know. Anyway, but this is why it's important. And this is why it goes back to society, because I would argue that for a long period of time in human history, the method for continuation of the species was akin to any other mammal. Really, it was a dominance play. The biggest, most rugged male takes over the tribe and gets all the females, or it just becomes at some point it was a physical dominance and then became a power dominance, and probably to some degree now it still is in some ways, because people would say, and please women weigh in on this, there's a lot of psychoanalysis into what it is that motivates women to like men, with certain men, in who they are. Now, some might be looking at it might be solely physical, right? And there are women that are attracted to the dudes that are like the Cro-Magnon, like the lion, right? That will go and beat up the other lion and take over the harem. There are women that are more like Peacock, who will have their own notion, their own desire of what a man should be, regardless of whether that makes fucking sense or not. Whether it survives in this world or not, that's the man I want. Okay? And I want to leave you with this, because I think this is where Jordan Peterson will crap his pants, because
coming for you again, fool.
I think it was 2010, I believe it was 2010, that the Dalai Lama said that the Western woman, or something about Western women, can change the world, or something to that effect. I don't remember the exact quote.
Let's dedicate a whole episode just to that.
I should have looked that up. Yeah, so we'll dedicate an episode. Yeah. And a lot of people
just think about that one.
A lot of people think it's the Western woman, like in a feminist notion that from this West, what's her name, from like some Daenerys Targaryen or whatever her name is, will come and free the kingdoms or something. And I don't think that's it. I think there's more. It has more to do with where we are evolutionarily than it does to do with the notion of necessarily that a special woman will necessarily come out and save the world. Now, maybe, hey, if you're doing it, hurry the fuck up.
Diana Prince, where are you?
Damn, right? I mean, okay, so women, especially you young women, because it's your generation that's going to be on. I mean, I'm telling you, the other generation that done made the mess, they ain't doing shit to fix it.
Shit.
Nothing. So it's going to be on you. If you care about your kids, if you don't have kids, I don't have kids. I care about your kids or their future. I mean, I'm gonna be dead by the time they grow up. So why should I care, right? Because there's something bigger than me, right? And I hope that everybody feels that way. You know, I would rather plant a tree than just simply plant some corn, because I think it makes sense for our species, right? And maybe I'm thinking way too much into it, but I think we all need to think about it a little bit more. But anyway, I think there's a lot going on. Think about those things. Now, about the peacock versus the lion and how the Western woman can change the world. If the Dalai Lama is prophetic, and I believe he is, but that was a long time ago. 2010.
Sheesh.
In the last 8 years, how much has really changed in
The whole world has gone to shit.
a lot of things?
Play a bomb, that's less than